I'll call to order the February 20th, 2015 Occupancy Tax Committee meeting. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting? Matt and, what's his name, Dennis?
Yeah. What's his name?
Lost my mind for a second.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Carried. We have a full agenda today and followed by a board meeting with a full agenda, so we're going to get right to it. We met with Liz Mahoney, Nick Caimano, and Ed Moore from the coalition. Kevin Garrity, Frank Thomas, Ron Conover, and myself met with them. Ron Conover was by telephone, but he was there nonetheless. Their concerns were just a few, and they thought we were a little too stringent with the regulations, and they asked that they be relaxed somewhat, and Martin Afferdew met with us also. And we agreed with them that perhaps we were overly cautious, and so therefore you have in front of you 47 pages of agreement, so it's like Prego, it's in there if you're concerned with anything. Yes, Gene?
Just a quick question. This draft I got here says 3, and I printed one out yesterday or the day before that says 4.
Yeah, you have the most recent draft is draft 4. If anybody needs a copy, I have extra copies here. But the working draft, the draft that is for your consideration today, and the draft that would be subject to the resolution at
and I'll let Martin explain the changes,
draft
3 to draft 4.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I got draft 3 with the changes.
Does everybody have draft 4? Draft 4 went out yesterday afternoon through the supervisors by email. And I wanted to just highlight a couple of points for you. The big changes with respect to the agreement from what was before you at your last committee meeting and now is how professional hockey is addressed. As you recall, the original draft indicated that occupancy tax funding could not be used to promote professional hockey at the Civic Center. And the coalition came to us and said, look, we'd like you to reconsider that. We think the landscape has changed, and we think that being able to promote professional hockey is key to the success of the Civic Center. So what we did was, recognizing that professional hockey is different than any other event that might otherwise be held at the Civic Center, we decided that we would come up with sort of a separate performance quarterly requirements for hockey. That's reflected in a new schedule that's called B1 in your packet. That schedule contains 2 items. It contains a lot of information, but 2 general topics. One is the precisely what occupancy tax funding can be used for to promote hockey, A, and then B, what are the performance reporting requirements that the coalition must meet. And I think this was actually my idea to come up with a separate B1, but I think when you consider hockey and you consider the number of nights that the events are there, I guess it's some 35 or 40 nights, something like that, it seemed to me that it would make very good sense to sort of carve professional hockey out as an exception. Again, with the assumption that you're going to allow occupancy tax funding to be used to promote hockey. So B1 is really the big change. That's sort of the meat of the new agreement, or the new draft, if you will. It's referenced in a number of places in the agreement in chief in paragraph 5 on beginning on page 3 of 13 and then carrying over onto page 4 of 13. Again, to distinguish hockey from any other event. So we've done that. We can talk about B1, the coalition representatives are here, we can talk about B1 if you have any questions. There was also a point that came up,
Martin,
you don't have B1?
I have B1, it's one page.
Yeah. B1 is one page, it's a schedule.
About page 13 and...
That's referenced in the agreement in chief, Supervisor.
Okay.
So if you flip back, B1 is what my point was, B1 is referenced in a couple of locations in the primary agreement. Page 3 of 13. Sorry, page 4 of 13.
Need a agreement?
I'm actually out of extra copies.
Ask me a question,
Thank
Thank you.
Well, I don't have any page numbers.
They're at the bottom of the page.
They're at the bottom of my page, Martin.
Well, it depends on what you're looking at.
Well, that's what I wanna
Okay,
know.
all right, you might be looking at exhibits, if you go back to the front,
Got it,
okay?
got it,
Got it?
yep.
Okay.
Okay.
So, that's hockey, and we can talk about that some more. Paragraph 5A, I think, is important. That's also on page 3 of 13 of the agreement in chief. So that's 1, 2, 3 pages in from the top, folks. And this has to do with sort of geographic zip code collection information. And I worked on this quite a bit because I think as I was listening to the coalition and I was listening to the conversation of the meeting the other day, it occurred, and I think it seemed to all of us, that having a requirement that the coalition place individuals at each entrance of the facility to collect zip code information could essentially be counterproductive. That's a cost to them. What information is to be gained may be in some doubt. So I thought what we tried to do there is try to be a little more flexible and accommodating to them in recognizing what their needs are. So I rewrote that to read, with the exception of quarterly performance reports concerning professional hockey as an event, as specified in paragraph 5B. That's a different creature. All quarterly performance reports for all other events shall include an estimate of the number of attendees for each event. So, for example, this would be basketball, perhaps. Each event, and reasonably available attendee geographic information, such as, but not limited to, attendee zip code and/or listing of attendees from each zip code. To collect the information required hereunder, the coalition shall employ such reasonable efforts necessary and appropriate as the coalition shall determine. So they still need to collect the information, but we're giving them much more latitude and flexibility in how they're going to collect that information. So that's an important consideration. Another item, paragraph 8C, is different. There was a concern raised by the coalition that paragraph, as originally written, was going to require county approval for any repairs, restoration, or modification to the Civic Center that the coalition may want to make. First of all, occupancy tax funding is not going to be used for repairs or restoration of the Civic Center, but it also, I've clarified that to make sure that the coalition knows that any repairs, any restoration, that's on them, that's at their sole cost and expense, and they don't have to come to us for approval for anything that they might want to do there. So that's been clarified. We've added, and I think this is a very good addition, we've added a new paragraph, production of records. Essentially, that's an audit requirement. Not a requirement, but the availability of the county to conduct an audit of the books and records of the coalition with respect to the occupancy tax funding. And as we all know, they have some very, very stringent reporting requirements here. Quarterly basis, they have to report to us. They have to be here every monthly meeting with a representative. That's at least how we're going to start this off anyway. And they have quite a bit of documentation that they have to supply to us in order to continue to receive the funding under this agreement. So now we've added, and I think this was a a consideration that was brought to the attention of us by Supervisor Sieber was the opportunity to be able to conduct audits, and the county treasurer would be able to do that upon reasonable request. And I just did want to point out that I did receive an email from Elizabeth Mahoney yesterday regarding this new draft 4. Based upon that email, it's my understanding that Attorney Mahoney is in accord with this agreement as presented. And those are the highlights I wanted to point out.
Okay, questions and comments? Rachel.
Thank you. I would just ask, as it relates to the auditing, that particular accountability, that we start here with the Civic Center, and looking at giving the authorization as stated in the law to our treasurer's office to perform that audit on how the OCTAX money is spent, but that we also begin as a committee, and I hope that you'll start to explore that option for all OCTAX funds. I just want to throw that out to you. I know that that's a committee decision, but one that I've talked to Martin about, as well as Mike Swan. I don't think Mike is here, but I know he is in agreement with that. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Okay, Dennis?
I took a week off, seems like it must have been a month. There are some events that, for example, Americade is private, it's a private business. I wouldn't not be interested in having their books audited. And my major reason would be is my major concern that I've had with the Civic Center is accountability. We have accountability with Americade. They generate estimated income from the spin-off of their business every year. That to me is enough to justify their $50,000 a year. So I would not be interested in auditing them specifically. Now, I'm not quite sure what Supervisor Sieber was after, but...
Well, I think it's an option. It's an option under the current agreement that everybody signs, right?
I believe that's correct, yes.
So
But we haven't, I don't think we've pursued.
it's not an option we're going to exercise anytime soon. I mean, Americade is a $42 million spinoff, so.
Okay, did you say that it wasn't an option that we would exercise anytime soon? Because it's my understanding from Mike
With
Swan.
Americade.
Oh, we've never audited. We've
Right.
never gone to the treasurer's office
Right.
in the time he's been here. I think it's about time that we start to look at, you know, the proper audit issues and just coming in and looking at this. But after speaking with Mike, I know it's something that he is interested in pursuing.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah,
Chairman.
I just like to clarify that. The funding that the county pays out is audited by the tourism office, correct, Alicia?
We get receipts, yes.
Yes, they get receipts, that funding, so I mean, there is an audit trail, but it doesn't go to the treasurer's office, but the funding is audited, and then on a town level, the towns audit the funding before it's given out on the town level. I would hope that we're auditing the funds and using it. So there is an audit, but they're just not an overall audit where somebody else looks at the bigger picture of tax funds. But there is an audit being done now.
And that's all I'm suggesting, is that we have that allowance in the law and that we should take a look at it.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. We'll vote on the coalition agreement. No?
We don't have a motion.
We don't have a motion. Could I have a motion to vote on the coalition agreement? John Stroud, Jean Merlino. Any further discussion?
I just would like to commend Martin and everyone on the staff that worked on this agreement. It's a very extensive agreement, and I think that I don't think what our goal here is to micromanage, but to be a good partner, a responsible partner, to hopefully participate in what will be a growing success.
Okay, Dennis?
I'd just like to point out, I obviously had some concerns about their accountability, but in lieu of the fact that some of my colleagues have been intimately involved here, I'm going to rely on their judgment, and vote accordingly.
I must say that, the coalition is very easy to work with. They're very open to suggestions, and, they're just extremely easy to work with. I wish everybody was that easy to work with. Call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay. Mayor Blaze to report on $100,000, Nick?
Sorry to interrupt, I just wanna say thank you. You have been easy to work with too. It's been a long, hard slog. It'll be longer and harder as time goes on, but we appreciate your being behind us. Thank you.
Okay. Mayor Blaze to report on $100,000 received, discuss use of funds for festival space, request funds for stage design.
Another guy easy to work with.
You're not easy.
Our committee, of which, 4 of them are here today, our citizen Dave is here, got $100,000 from the county, which we thank you for. We had 44 applications applying for $316,500. We, the town of Lake George, added $35,000 to the pot. The village of Lake George added $35,000. The committee had 170. We interviewed all those 44 people. We got done at the end. We added up what we gave them, and we came to $172,000 without ever going back. So it worked out well. From our standpoint, thank you very much. The system is working. We think everyone went away very pleased with the awards. With that said, we've distributed half of the awards to each of the groups that received them, along with the new application for the festival space, which you know has been done over by the county attorney, which is also a contract. So I distributed the amounts, said we needed now the contract back with down payments. So we should see some cash coming in. Couple questions in the allocations to the occupancy tax. There was a line item called festival space, $25,000. I wasn't sure what the use of that was. Was that for events that we perhaps might book after we gave the original allocations, or is that money to be used specifically for items connected to the festival space?
I think it was to be used for promotion of events.
For promotions?
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Made you happy?
Yes.
Yeah,
The festival space is booked, solid. We're now booked from Memorial Day until October 11th or 12th. We're working with another group, believe it or not, that wants to book it October, I think it's 20th and 21st. The one, since I was here last time, we had 14 events. Now we have 17. If each one of them comes to fruition, our income this year at the festival space will be $46,500. The only weekend that's open is the weekend of Travers, which I left open purposely, because that's a weekend usually we don't need too much, plus the firemen. But we've been in contact with a friend for a national touring act. This is a SPAC type act. The reason I asked about the $25,000, it's not going to be cheap, but it'll put the festival space on the map if he decides to come here. I'm hoping, because of this meeting today, a promoter will step up and do the negotiations with his agent. It's not going to be me that's going to take that risk. And if he is available, he wants to come to Lake George. He's passing through. I found out about it. And it would be Sunday, August 23rd, which is a day after Travers Day. I've applied to the New York State DOT for a sign on Interstate 87 for the festival space at Wood Park. And I'd just like to throw this out there. I had a little contest over the winter, name the festival space, because I think festival space is pretty honky, you know, and they already call Lake George honky tonk now, so we don't want to have it that bad. Festival Commons, Festival Green, something. If there's anybody out there before we get the sign on the Northway and before we do all our brochures, and Michael will report on the website, I think we need a little name that's a little catchier, so festival space isn't making it with me, and I hope it isn't with some of you. The last item is, we need a stage. We're gonna need a stage someday. The fence is being bid out actually next week. So that's something that we needed for this summer, but within the next 2 or 3 years, we need a stage. I called a meeting in Saratoga. I was able to get 7 of the promoters that are doing events at the festival space there. I had 2 architects there with Elan Planning, who you know is the group that designed the park, and we had a great meeting for a couple of hours as to what each of their needs might be, what should be in a stage at the festival space, and from that was generated a proposal from this architect to work with Elan, and I have copies of it with me today. The proposal basically is to determine how the facility will be used, what is capacity and level service is necessary, design a floor plan and the architectural style, implement acoustical and operational considerations, and come up with a preliminary development cost. The proposal is for a total of $10,500. The village board has approved funding 38% of that. I would like to know where I'm to go with this next as far as the county.
Does it go before this committee?
Is it a proper use for occupancy tax?
Yeah, I would say yes.
I mean, I would think, given our history, it would be a proper use for occupancy tax, given our history of, this is a stage, we're approving a fence, right? We've said we've indicated that although we're borrowing money, potentially borrowing money, I think we've determined that that's a proper use of funds as well.
Well, we met with Mike Swan, Ron Conover, Gene Merlino, and myself to discuss the funding for the fencing, and it was determined that we're going to leave that up to Mike Swan, better judgment than ours, and but the committee leaned toward 2 years funding, 2 years bonding. So
I guess to be clear, I just want to make sure I'm clear. This is a stage, right?
Correct.
Okay. Your spending guidelines do provide for expenditures on capital improvements. So this is a capital improvement, and capital improvements can be seen as promoting tourism, promoting the general economy of the county. So I really don't have any reservation about if you decide to use these
so
funds.
you're talking about $7,200, is that right?
Approximately, yes, for the county, your share.
We could take it out of the reserve.
How,
Do we have a motion?
how soon do we need a decision?
How soon do we need a decision, Bob?
Next month. Doesn't have to be right away. What I'd like to do is get it designed and get a cost estimate, obviously, and then apply for some funding. We have several sources of funding for a stage.
Oh,
But
we have
the
another
next-
meeting in 2 weeks, March 5th.
That's fine. Yeah, the next round of funding will be sometime in the fall, so that we could perhaps be under construction.
We'll put that on the agenda for March 5th.
Okay, you have I passed the only copies I had left there. So the last item was, we do have a website that's being proposed, and Michael's here today, and I can tell you that we're sitting on the top of something that is gonna be extremely, extremely successful. And it's too bad we didn't do it a long time ago, but we did.
I see the smile on your face when you talk about the festival space.
Yeah.
And my face smiles too, because I've been behind it for a long time.
Right, we proposed, actually, the first time it was proposed was in 1988, believe it or not.
That was
But,
before me.
But it wasn't as cold then in the winter, so we can't book it. But we actually have a waiting list right now, people. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot during the week, These are mostly all weekend events, 2 days, 3 days, the most. Our price is very reasonable because, of course, we don't have a stage and we didn't have a fence, so on and so forth. But you can imagine, if we get the stage and we get a fence and we get it up and running, this will be a tremendous revenue generator along with your parking lot for the county.
Jim Burke.
Oh, just a suggestion for the name of the festival might be Blazing Saddles.
Well, could be, yeah. We're not sure I like that better than the
We're not.
I just don't think festival space makes it. Commons has come up with a lot of people, and we had a little contest at the high school in Lake George last year about it, and didn't come up with really anything. But before we get our signage up and before we do all that stuff, I think we just need something a little more catchy, that's all.
What's wrong with Festival Park?
County attorney.
Festival what?
Comment?
Festival Park.
Well, right now, we're calling it the festival space at Wood Park. It keeps it kind of short, so Wood Park is in there. We gotta get the Wood Park in there some way. I wish someone would give us a lot of money like the Civic Center does, Mike left, I guess, and name it, but, we don't have anybody jumping through the hoops to do that.
Martin?
Yep. Mayor, with all these events, I'm hearing you only have one weekend available, and it's terrific. I had prepared, and I don't know if it made it your way, but while I have you here, I just thought I'd ask you. I had prepared a comprehensive joint use permit between the village and the county for these functions. My question is, has that made it to you so that you can be sending it to these sponsors or event holders, as the case may be?
The comprehensive use permit is exactly what we sent to them.
Great, okay.
For their signatures. We had one prior,
Right.
but it didn't have the contract language on it. So that's why I'm having to send out, when we sent them the checks that they got, we sent them the new contract, said sign it, send back your money.
Okay.
We're ready to go. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
That's what we use, yeah.
Thank you.
As the county and the village letterhead on it.
I must commend the mayor
Thank
for
you.
the job he's doing promoting the Wood Park Festival space. Not only is he a Red Sox fan, but he's a festival space fan as well. Rachel?
Just briefly, and I'm not sure if now is an appropriate time, but two things quickly. Mayor, just if I could throw this idea out to you, in the past, even with our Warren Washington County Child Advocacy Center, when we weren't sure what to name the Child Advocacy Center, we went out to our schools and we asked them to do like a poster contest and come up with different names. It might be a fun exercise to involve the community in what they think a great name would be for such a wonderful facility. So, but that wasn't my point of standing up. You know, throughout this process with the Civic Center and trying to learn more about OCTAX, and of course all of us that are new, we're all trying to get up to speed and understand things. It came to my attention that we're spending a lot of money on print on our brochures, and the amount of course, you know, we're listening to different proposals and asking for decisions on different amounts of money, which are substantial. And I just want to throw out there that I was surprised to hear some hotels, they don't even want the print. They don't even want the brochures. We're going into an age where we really, and I think someone said it at a previous meeting about the millenniums and how we really need to be focusing on the websites and these interactive boards and making this a great place to live, work, and play, because ultimately people move here because they love this area. And I just wanted to throw it out to the committee and ask maybe if that's something that we could look at in the future. I know that you guys have talked about reducing some of those costs, but using that OCTAX money in a very different way than just pouring a lot of this, a substantial amount, into print.
I think we have reduced the number of copies that we print, most brochures, but people still like a hard copy in their hand.
Right, and I don't doubt that some do, but I think, not that I'm young, you know, I'm not making that representation.
You're young compared to me, so.
But I am saying, I think a bunch, you know, we're looking at a younger generation who could care less about the print. And maybe there is kind of a way we could start to explore this if that's possible. So I didn't know the appropriate time, but wanted to bring it up given the discussions we've had in the last month.
Okay.
Thank you.
John?
Well, just very quickly, I want to give the mayor a thumbs up on your efforts on the Festival Commons, okay?
Nice guy, rub it in.
Dean Merlino has an issue.
Well, are we gonna vote on mayor's 10,000 first, or?
No, next month.
Next one, oh, you done this. It seems that most of the supervisors are here, I was gonna bring it up at the regular board meeting. We ran into the same kind of problem as the Civic Center did with the Lake George, Chamber, and CVB board. We did, allocate some money, a large amount of money for them to help promote the county and to promote, stuff. But what came up, the contract that we all voted on a couple of months ago, there was, you caught me by surprise here, I usually am ready. There was one part in the, resolution, and this is really for the full board, because I think the tourism committee at the full board has to agree with this. I've talked to some of the committee meetings, I've talked to the chairman, I've talked to Mr. Affidove, the attorney, and Mr. Kenny. There was one part in the way it was all worked out, that at the bottom is regarding payments. There was an option on here, how the payments would be made, monthly, quarterly, or upon the completion of the project. And there was a little asterisk at the bottom. I don't know how that got in there, but I guess a lot of us didn't see it. But then it says payments will be made on a reimbursement, meaning, Lake George Chamber, if they spend $25,000 in the month of January, they have to voucher us, in February, and then they don't get the money until maybe March. What I'd like to do is go back to the original thing that we had with the Lake George Chamber for the last 3 years, was just divide the money by monthly. So they'll be able to get so much by each month, because what it's doing, it's hurting their cash flow at the chamber. So if they have to put out $25,000, let's say in January, that comes out of their money. So basically the same thing, the Civic Center, it's hard to promote something and then put the money out now and then get paid for it 3 or 4 months later. So what I'm gonna bring up at the full board meeting, is just try to, just change this one part of this contract. And I think, and a lot of the questions are, with Lisa and Kate downstairs and myself, we will really be monitoring their reports to us monthly and making sure that the money is, going where it's supposed to go, and I guarantee that. But this is important, because we don't wanna drive them drained for the next 2 months, paying out for promotion that's gonna happen 6 months from now, and hurt their, like a small business. You put out a lot of money, and this time of year, it's tough to pay your own bills, so. And I'm just bringing that up here, so everybody, unless somebody has a
Well,
question
it
about
needs to come before the committee anyway, so.
Well, see, I thought this came out of the.
It makes perfect sense to me to pay monthly, Ron?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a question of accounting. The accounting is going to take place anyway.
Right.
It's a question of the distribution of the money. And, I think it's a reasonable suggestion, especially given the amount of money that we're talking about. We're not talking $2,000 or $3,000 grant here.
Right.
We're into, I think it was a $240,000, so.
So I mean, like, a
I
lot
don't have a
of
problem
the
with
bed
that.
tax money that we give out to small people, they can spend $2,000, $3,000, really not bother them. But when you get into like the Civic Center, or now into this is the first year we're working with the chamber on such a large amount of money, and we hope that it pans out for the chamber and the CBB board and for Warren County and for tourism in general. So I'd just like to get that one part removed from the resolution number 584, 2014.
You wanna make that in the form of a
I'd like to
motion?
make that in a form of motion.
Okay, seconded by Ron. Any further discussion? Rachel?
Are we gonna make this available to any applicant, any tax applicant that comes
Well,
up that has
I
a
don't think
large-
so. I think just to the larger ones.
Okay.
It's a unique situation, the Civic Center and the Chamber.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, when Supervisor Maleo and I were talking about this yesterday, as I mentioned to you this morning, and to address, I think, the perceived concern of Supervisor Sieber, I think one of the things that I might be able to do here, and I fully support this, by the way, one of the things I might be able to do here that would help the committee and help the supervisors going forward is perhaps I could develop a definition or a guideline or a policy for when these non-reimbursement agreements are appropriate. Not that that will be the be-all, end-all, but at least that will give you the type of entity, the chamber, the coalition, et cetera, where these funding agreements, rather than these reimbursement agreements, are appropriate. So it wouldn't necessarily apply in all instances.
Okay.
Will a report be made,
Yes.
on a monthly basis?
They still will make a report on
As-
a monthly basis.
Well, the report that we got in the past just basically, stated the different meetings and conventions and so forth that they attended and people that they contacted for, with proposals and so forth. I think what the intent was of the reimbursement was to know exactly what the money was being spent on. So would their report, even though we're advancing the money, actually spell out those expenses?
I definitely think so, Mike.
Mike?
If I may. Good morning, everyone. To answer your specific question, yes, we would be able to support not only with a written document of what Christina Curley has been doing with her monthly activities, but we'll also substantiate that with receipts
Okay.
for any advance payments that we have to have made for perhaps a trade show that she's going to or an ad that she's placing. So that certainly will take care of that. I hope that answers your question. Thank you for the opportunity for us to make this change. It's been over the last couple of years that we've been working with a monthly reimbursement, and it seemed to work. And all we're asking for is that same monthly, just though it's going to be at a higher level. But we can support that. I just wanted to follow up with a comment regarding the mayor and the website. But first of all, Christina has found a couple of groups that are looking at midweek for the festival space, commons, grounds, parks, whatever we're going to call it. But so we do have a couple of groups that are interested in doing some midweek activities, so that's a good sign for us. As far as the website is concerned, last week we interviewed 3 companies for a design and development of the festival grounds website. Those proposals have been received by us. We're meeting on Tuesday, the 24th, to make a decision, and we should have that decision made on that date with a target date of having the site up and running by the 1st of April, if not sooner. So we're pretty much on schedule or a good position with the website. We're very pleased with the companies we've talked to.
Okay. I'll call a question. All in favor? Against? Carried.
One more question, do I have to bring this up to the full board, or?
I think you do.
Yeah.
Because
We have to waive the
it's going to be a modification to that resolution, and so we'll have to waive the rules. And
Old business, pending items, none, new business, any new business?
You know, we're hard pressed, Mr. Chairman, for time, but I just wanted to say, you know, when we rolled out these changes to the Octax program, there's always worries. But I have to say that I have to commend you and Mr. Merlino and the Treasurer's Office. It's really, I think, rolled out in about as seamless a fashion as we could have imagined, and I think there were some additional pluses to the whole exercise, not the least of which is the participation by our major property owners and hoteliers and their representatives. I think and the input that they're having to the process. I know Mr. Merlino's had some meetings with them, and I know that that's going to pay big dividends going forward. And I just want to also mention to Mr. Dickinson and the mayor the idea of the 2 municipalities coming together to review events and program funding as 2 separate municipalities under one umbrella. I think it was just fabulous. If the mayor's still here, apparently he's not. Oh, yeah, there he is. I think it's just a wonderful approach, and particularly when some 44 or 45% of the Octax monies comes out of those 2 municipalities and the visitors to those 2 municipalities, and that was a wonderful plus, I think, to the change in the program.
Any other new business? Dennis?
I just want to mention to the mayor that I think you need a name that's indicative of the park there, and I would suggest you consider Superior Park Entertainment Center, and then you could call it SPEC.
Any other new business? Hearing none, I accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Dennis? John Stroud? All in favor?
I understand.